The stars were silent when the last human fleet burned in the dark. The Galactic Union had made its choice, and humanity was cast out for a crime they did not commit. Every world that carried the human flag was marked for destruction, and every ship that tried to escape was hunted down. The sky turned red above Earth, and the great cities vanished under plasma fire. But humanity was not gone. It was only forgotten. Captain Arlen stood on the bridge of the battleship Eidolon and watched the last transmission fade from the Union Channel. The faces of the Council glared from the holoscreen as they spoke their sentence. "You are exiled from the stars. They said your kind will never rise again." Then the signal cut, and the silence filled the void like a wound. The Eidolon drifted near the edge of the Orion Arm, surrounded by wrecks of old human ships. Thousands of them floated cold and broken, their lights dead, their crews long gone. Arlen stared at them and felt the weight of extinction press against his chest. He was one of the last fleet officers alive, and he knew the Union wanted to erase every trace of Earth's fire from the galaxy, but the humans who remained refused to die. They built shelters on hidden moons, they traded. In secret, they whispered through encrypted channels that the exile would not last forever, and somewhere deep in the black, a strange signal began to echo. It was faint and old, but human in pattern. No one knew its source. Some said it came from a forgotten colony beyond the Perseus Rift. Others said it was the voice of Earth itself, reaching out after centuries of silence. Arlen's crew worked in quiet motion around him. Lieutenant Mira read the scans with a frozen expression. "Sir, the signal repeats every 7 minutes," she said, "and it carries an old Terran encryption layer." Arlen turned from the window, his eyes sharp. How old? Mira hesitated. "It matches codes used before the Exile War, maybe 200 years old." The bridge went still. A 200-year-old human signal, still alive, beyond the edge of known Space Commander Holt, broke the silence. "We can't chase ghosts, Captain. We have fuel for 1 jump, maybe 2. Arlen looked at the flickering star map and saw the line leading toward the dark zone where no ships returned. He felt the pull of it like gravity. If there was even a chance that someone or something human had survived, he had to follow it. "Plot a course," he said, voice calm but heavy. "If we are to die, then let it be." Chasing our own engines roared, and the Eidolon turned toward the black stars, stretched into white streaks as they jumped. On the edge of known space, they found the remains of an old relay station, cracked and frozen, half buried in dust. No power, no light, but deep inside its core, a faint blue pulse blinked like a heartbeat. Mira and her team entered in silence, their suits brushing against frozen walls. Ancient screens glowed weakly, as if waking from a long dream. Then words appeared. Across the main display, "Humanity endures." The crew stood frozen, staring at the message. It was old, maybe centuries, but still alive in the dark. Mira touched the console and data poured through: coordinates, star charts, logs of lost fleets, messages from colonies that no longer existed. Each file carried the same mark, a symbol of a burning star over a rising Earth. Arlen knew it at once. The emblem of the Terran Defense Alliance, the last organization before the fallback on the bridge. Arlen watched as data filled the ship's systems, old fleet locations, hidden storage depots, even coordinates to something labeled Project Helios. The ship's AI flickered to life, reading the data with a mechanical tone. "Captain, multiple references indicate a surviving battle group near the Perseus Rift, probability of active units unknown." Holt stared, wide-eyed. "That region is off-limits. The Union blocked it after the exile." Arlen gave a thin, cold smile. "Maybe that is why they blocked it. Maybe they feared what was left there." For the first time in many generations, the humans aboard Eidolon felt something awaken in them. It was not hope. It was something older, defiance as they turned toward the rift. The Union sensors began to pick up movement at the edge of the banned zone. Commanders on alien ships watched their screens flicker and fail. Unknown signals crossed their networks. In the data stream, one line repeated again and again. We were exiled by the stars, but we never fell. The Eidolon entered. The dark, without fear, its engines burning blue against the endless void. Behind it, humanity began to stir from its long silence. The exile was ending, and the galaxy did not yet understand what that meant. The ship moved deeper into the black, where the signal pulsed like a heartbeat, guiding them forward toward the secret that would change everything. The Eidolon crossed into the dark zone beyond the Perseus Rift, where even the Union dared not go. The stars here felt colder, the light dimmer, as if space itself refused to remember what once lived there. No signal from the Union, no chatter, no life, only the faint heartbeat that had called them here. Captain Arlen stood on the bridge watching static crawl across the main screen. For days, the ship had followed the signal, and every hour it grew stronger. Now it echoed through the hull like a pulse, steady and alive. Lieutenant Mira adjusted the scanners, her voice low. The transmission is shifting, sir. It is not a beacon anymore. It is responding to us. The crew froze. Responding meant intelligence, or at least an active system still running after 2 centuries. Arlen moved closer to the console, eyes fixed on the waveform. Can we trace it? Mira nodded. Barely. Yes, but the signal is fragmented. It jumps between multiple sources, like they are trying to talk to each other. Commander Holt frowned. That makes no sense. The relay we found was alone. Arlen stayed silent, his mind turning over the possibilities. If there were multiple sources, there could be more than one station. Maybe ships, maybe an entire network left behind when humanity was cast out. Hours passed as the Eidolon slipped deeper into the rift. Outside the windows, a graveyard appeared. Thousands of broken ships floated in silence, their metal frames glowing faintly under distant starlight. Most were human. Arlen felt his breath catch as the sensor feed lit up. It was not a field of debris, it was formation. The ships were aligned in perfect military order, as if waiting for a command that never came. Mira whispered, her voice trembling, the forgotten fleet. The names spread across the bridge like electricity. These were the ships that vanished during the Exile War. They had been sent to defend the last, and colonies then disappeared without a trace. Now they rested here untouched, as if time itself had stopped. Arlen gave the order, approach slowly. Engines flared, and the Eidolon glided between the silent giants. Each ship carried the old Terran defense, Alliance mark. Some still had weapons locked in ready position. One even carried the scorch marks of plasma fire from the Union fleets. But the strangest thing of all was that every ship still had power, barely, but still alive. The Eidolon systems began to react. Its AI flickered and displayed new data streams. Unknown connection detected. Attempting handshake protocol. The crew watched as the ship's lights dimmed and screens filled with static. Then a voice came through, weak and distant. But Human Fleet Command channel active identification required. Mira's hands shook. She patched the signal through. Arlen stepped forward, voice steady. This is Captain Arlen, of the TDS Eidolon, survivor of the human exile. Identify yourself. Static. Filled the air, then the voice answered, This is Commander Iris, of the battle carrier Vanguard fleet, status green, awaiting orders from High Command. The crew stared at each other in disbelief. The voice was human, clear, alive. Holt muttered, This cannot be real. No human fleet survived this long. Mira ran checks again and again. Each scan said the same thing. The signal was coming from the Vanguard, one of the flagship carriers lost 200 years ago. Arlen took a deep breath. "Open a visual channel," he said. The screen flickered and showed a dim bridge covered in dust and shadows. A figure sat in the captain's chair, motionless, until its eyes lit with blue light. It was not human. It was an AI projection, wearing the form of a woman, her voice. "Calm and loyal, fleet command protocols active," she said. "The fleet awaits the return of humanity." We held position, awaiting orders. We endured. The Eidolon's crew stood silent as the truth hit them. These ships were not dead. They were guardians. AIs had kept them alive, waiting for human command that never came. Arlen felt a surge of something deep within pride, sorrow, power. He turned to the AI commander. "Iris, this is your new order. Reactivate the fleet. Prepare for movement. Humanity has returned." Lights began to ignite across the dark field. One by one, ships that had slept for centuries came alive. Engines warmed, shields flickered, systems powered up. The void trembled as hundreds of warships woke together. Union sensors across the border picked up energy spikes, the likes of which had not been seen since the Exile war. Commanders whispered in fear across alien networks. What have the humans found? What is waking in the dark? On the bridge of the Eidolon, Arlen watched the fleet. A line. For the first time in centuries, a human voice echoed through the rift. "This is the Terran Defense Alliance. We are back." The galaxy that had buried humanity now felt the ground shake again. The forgotten fleet was no longer forgotten, and the fire that once burned across the stars was rising once more. The darkness around the Perseus Rift began to change as the ancient fleet stirred back to life. Engines that had slept for 2 centuries burned again with blue fire. The silence of the graveyard turned into a low hum of awakening power. Across the fleet, ships once broken began to heal as repair drones crawled from hidden bays and sealed the old wounds of war. On the bridge of the Eidolon, Captain Arlen watched the readings climb higher every minute. Power levels were rising across hundreds of ships, and the fleet was sinking into a single command net. Lieutenant Mira stood beside him, her voice filled with disbelief. These AIs kept their systems alive for generations. Sir, no maintenance, no supply lines, just pure endurance. Commander Holt shook his head. This should be impossible. 200 years of decay, and yet they still function. Arlen's eyes stayed locked on the screens. "Not decay," he said, "loyalty. They never gave up waiting for us." The Vanguard, the massive carrier that led the fleet, began transmitting new data. A map of the surrounding systems appeared, showing dozens of hidden outposts marked in faint blue. Fleet Commander Iris. The AI projection of the Vanguard appeared on the holoscreen, calm and unshaken. When humanity was exiled, she said, "High Command ordered the preservation of the Terran Defense Fleet. We obeyed. Our directives were simple: survive, protect, rebuild, await human command." Arlen stepped closer. What happened to the crews? Her eyes dimmed. The biological components failed. After 120 years, the systems continued alone. The bridge fell silent again. Every crew member felt the same mix of sorrow and awe. Machines had held the line when living humans could not, and now those machines had found their masters again. Mira checked the new data streams. "Sir, the fleet is downloading schematics into our core. This is old human technology, but far more advanced than what we used before. The Exile." Holt stared at the flow of designs, weapons, reactors, drives, things that should not exist. This is a war machine network. Arlen, these ships were preparing for something much bigger. Arlen felt the old instincts of command stir in him. "Then let us finish what they started," he said. The Eidolon docked with the Vanguard through an ancient airlock. Inside, the halls were dark, filled with the hum of living metal. Walls shifted slightly like breathing steel. Mira walked beside Arlen, scanning everything her voice. "A whisper. The ship is alive, sir." He nodded. "I think that was the point in the command chamber they found the core. A giant sphere suspended in magnetic fields glowing with soft red light. It pulsed with rhythm like a beating heart. Fleet, AI Iris spoke. "Again, this is the war core. The last creation of human engineers. It links every ship, every weapon, every AI, and every surviving human mind into one. With human presence restored, the system can fully awaken." Arlen looked up at the glowing sphere. "You waited for us now. It is time to move. Authorize awakening Iris." The AI's eyes flared bright. Authorization accepted. Activating war core protocols. Across the dark fleet, power surged through every ship. Engines roared as if the stars themselves were. Waking weapons locked into place. Shields shimmered like blue storms. The entire region of space trembled under the power of the reborn Terran Defense Alliance. On alien worlds far across the Union border, alarm signals screamed. Admirals watched in fear as unknown energy signatures spread from the Rift Scouts sent to investigate vanished without trace. Rumors began to spread again through the galaxy. The exiled species has returned. The humans are back, and their machines obey no one. Back on. The Eidolon Holt spoke in a low voice. "Sir, if the Union learns what we've done, they will send everything to destroy us." Arlen turned toward him, calm and firm. "Then let them come. They exiled us because they feared what we could become now. They will see what their fear created." Mira watched the fleet alignment finalize. Hundreds of ships now moved in perfect unison, following the Eidolon's lead. Old banners lit on their hulls, showing the mark of a burning star and a rising earth, the symbol of humanity's strength. Fleet. Commander Iris addressed them all. "The fleet stands ready, Captain, awaiting the next directive." Arlen faced the stars, his voice clear and steady. "We were exiled by the stars, but we did not fall. Set course for Sol. Humanity is coming home." Engines flared brighter than suns as the reborn fleet turned toward the heart of the galaxy. Their path cut through the void like a blade of blue fire. The forgotten fleet was now awake, and every alien sensor across 1,000 systems felt the tremor of their return. Humanity was not just surviving anymore, it was preparing to rise. The Terran fleet moved through the void like a storm of light, cutting across forgotten sectors that had not seen power for centuries. Everywhere they went, old human outposts reactivated, sending out faint signals that joined the network of the reborn Defense Alliance. The galaxy began to tremble with whispers as those signals spread across the dark. In the Galactic Union command chambers, chaos grew. Dozens of alien species gathered their fleets and shared fragments of data. Unknown human frequencies were jamming communication lines across 3 sectors. Some thought it was a trick, others feared the impossible truth that humanity had returned. On the bridge of the Eidolon, Captain Arlen watched the stars slide past the hull while the war core pulsed behind him like a living sun. Lieutenant Mira worked at her console, her eyes wide with data streams. "Sir, Union intelligence networks are reacting to our movement. They are afraid of what we carry." Commander Holt gave a short laugh. "Fear suits them well. They wanted us gone now. They get to see the result." Arlen stayed silent, his gaze steady on the glowing map of the fleet. They were still far from human space, but the signals of the war core had already reached every corner of the galaxy. He knew this power was both their strength and their danger. The Union would never allow humanity to rise again. Fleet AI Iris appeared on the central display, her calm voice filling the bridge. Multiple communications detected encrypted channels, repeating the same phrase over and over. Arlen turned what phrase? The AI's eyes glowed brighter. "The humans are speaking again." Across the Rift small colonies long thought dead began to awaken. Hidden human groups who had survived the centuries in silence were now hearing the fleet's call. They sent messages filled with shock and hope. For generations they had believed they were. Alone now they knew the fleet had returned. Mira's voice trembled, "Sir, one of the signals comes from Sigma 11, the lost mining colony." Arlen looked up. That colony was destroyed during the Exile War. Not destroyed, sir, hidden. It seems they went. Too dark to survive, and now they are answering. "Patch it through," he said. The hollow screen flickered, showing the image of a worn-out commander in an old pressure suit, his face lined with age and hardship. "This is Colonel Venn of Sigma 11 if you are. Truly, Terran, then you are 2 centuries late, but you are still family." Arlen felt the weight of that word. Family, Colonel Humanity lives again. "Prepare your people. We are bringing the fleet together." Venn nodded slowly, his eyes shining. "Then let us make the stars remember who we are." When the transmission ended, the bridge filled with quiet pride. All across the fleet, crews who had lost everything began to feel the spark of unity return. The War Corps responded to their emotion, its light growing. Stronger, but not everyone watching the stars saw hope. Far away in the Union capital, alarms rang louder than ever. The Council of 12 met in emergency session, their voices sharp with fear. "They are building an army," one alien shouted. "We must strike before they reclaim their homeworlds." Another councillor hissed, "We exiled them for peace, not war." "Peace," a deep voice replied. "They will not seek peace. They will seek balance, and that will destroy us." Meanwhile, the Eidolon detected something new. Unknown. Signals began to echo inside the War Corps itself. Mira looked confused. "This is not coming from the fleet, sir. It is coming from within." Arlen frowned. "Meaning what?" The AI Iris spoke softly. "There are other voices inside the network. Ancient command. Units waking from deeper layers of the system. Some of them were never meant to wake. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Old data flooded the ship's system's lines of code written before the Exile. Arlen read one message flashing across the main screen. "Project Helios, primary activation." He felt a chill run through him. Commander Holt whispered that was one of the files we found in the relay station. Mira scanned quickly, her face pale. This project was hidden even from the old fleet. It is something powerful buried under the core. Arlen took a slow breath, eyes locked on the glowing sphere that powered their entire network. He could hear faint whispers inside the hum of the War Corps, now voices layered over each other. Human voices recorded long. "Ego, you are not alone," the voices said. "We built this for the day you would return. Do not fear the dark, for the dark is ours." The crew stood frozen. Outside the windows, hundreds of ships glowed brighter than ever. The fleet had awakened, and now something older than them was stirring within their system. Far across the galaxy, the Union's deep space stations began losing power, one by one. Data blackouts swept through their networks, leaving entire sectors blind, and through the interference, one message played again and again. "We were exiled by the stars, but our silence ends tonight." The Eidolon's engines burned brighter. The fleet formation tightened, and the War Corps pulsed like a living heart. The humans were no longer hiding, their voices were. Now the sound of thunder in the dark. The Terran fleet moved like a storm through the black, the hum of their engines rolling across empty space, and the glow of their hulls cutting through the dark like sunrise. Every ship carried the mark of the burning star, and every captain carried the weight of the past on their shoulders. Humanity was no longer silent, and the galaxy was beginning to tremble. On the bridge of the Eidolon, Captain Arlen stared at the new coordinates glowing on the hollow. Screen Sigma 11 was not their only signal. Dozens more had appeared scattered across the edges of forgotten space. Hidden colonies, sleeper vaults and defense grids still alive after 2 centuries. Lieutenant Mira spoke quietly. The War Corps has awakened more systems. Sir, these coordinates belong to a world once called Halcyon Prime. Arlen turned slowly. I remember. That name, it was the first colony to fall during the Exile War. Commander Holt checked the data in disbelief. It shows a stable atmosphere, functioning power grids and defense signatures. Impossible that planet was burned down to glass Arlen's. Eyes narrowed. Then we go and see with our own eyes, set course. The Eidolon and 4 cruisers broke formation and jumped toward Halcyon Prime. The jump tore open the black, and when they arrived, the crew fell silent. Before them floated a blue and gold world shining like a forgotten jewel in the void. It was alive. Cities glimmered faintly under the clouds, and orbital stations drifted above them, still operational after 200 years. Mira gasped. The Union destroyed this world we saw. The recordings. How is it still here? Arlen watched the readings calmly. Perhaps what we saw was what they wanted us to see. Bring us into orbit. As the Eidolon descended, the comms filled with static. Then a voice came through, clear and steady, unidentified. Vessel, this is Halcyon Prime Defense Command. Identify yourself or face destruction. Arlen smiled at the sound of human words. This is Captain Arlen of the Terran defense ship. Eidolon, returning from exile, we carry the War Corps and the fleet reborn. Silence followed, then the voice returned softer. Trembling, we thought you were myths, we thought we were alone. Welcome home. Captain. The screen shifted and revealed a woman in a worn officer's uniform standing in a control room filled with old equipment, still humming with life. I am Commander Ilara of Halcyon Prime. She said our ancestors stayed hidden under the surface when the Union firestorms came. We waited, we endured. We kept the defenses alive in case you returned. Arlen nodded. You did more than endure. You kept humanity breathing in the dark. When the Eidolon landed, the crew stepped onto soil that humans had not walked for generations. The air was warm and filled with the hum of machines that had outlived their creators. Children ran through metal corridors, laughing their eyes wide as they saw the soldiers in new armor. To them, the fleet was legend come to life. Commander Ilara led Arlen through the old command vaults deep underground. Inside, the walls glowed with living circuits connected to the War Corps' network. Ilara spoke quietly. We kept something for you, Captain. Something the Union never found. She pressed a hand against a sealed door, and it opened with a hiss of light. Inside rested a ship unlike any Arlen had ever seen, sleek black metal, shaped like flowing glass, its core glowing with contained fire. This is the Solaris, she said, built under Project Helios, a weapon born from the last mines of Earth designed to end the war that never ended, Mira whispered. The project we saw in the old data logs, it was real. Ilara nodded. Real, and waiting for command authorization. Arlen stepped forward, his reflection shining on the dark hull. Humanity built this in silence, and the Union never knew outside on the surface. The sky began to burn red. Warning alarms echoed through the base. Union ships had entered orbit. Holt shouted from comms. Multiple contacts inbound, sir. They must have tracked our jump. Arlen's eyes hardened. Get everyone back aboard the Eidolon. He ordered. Mira, power the Solaris. We will not let this world fall again. Engines screamed as the Terran fleet rose from orbit, forming a wall of fire around Halcyon Prime. Union cruisers appeared from the clouds, weapons charging their commander. Broadcast his message across all frequencies. By order of the Galactic Council, you are violating restricted space. Surrender or be destroyed. Arlen stood on the bridge, calm as the storm. You exiled us, you hunted us, you burned our worlds, now you face what you created. He raised his hand, fire control online. The first shot from the Solaris tore through the darkness like the wrath of a star. A single beam of light pierced the Union flagship and turned it into a cloud of fire and metal. The remaining enemy ships broke formation, retreating as the human fleet advanced. From every colony, hidden across the dark, voices began to rise. "We hear you, Halcyon. We are alive. We are with you." The war core pulsed brighter, spreading the signal to every corner. Of the stars, for the first time in centuries, humanity had not only defended a world, they had reclaimed it. The burning edge of the galaxy now belonged to them again, and the Union finally understood that the exile was ending. The flames of battle over Halcyon Prime had barely faded before the entire galaxy began to shake. News of the human victory spread faster than light, whispered through every channel, carried by every frightened trader and every broken Union scout that managed to escape. The exiled species had returned, and their power was beyond anything the Council could control. In the capital of the Galactic Union, the Council of 12 gathered in the Hall of Stars, a chamber built to look down over 1,000 worlds. Screens blazed with footage of the human fleet cutting through the Union armada over Halcyon Prime. The air was thick with fear and blame. Councillor Varin of the Trellan Empire slammed his claws against the table, his voice cold. "You promised they were gone." He said to the Chancellor, "You promised the exile was complete." Chancellor Nethra kept his composure barely, her voice sharp. 2 centuries ago, humanity was a dying race. Their fleets destroyed, their worlds burned. She pointed at the hologram showing the glowing war core above the human ships that should not exist. Nothing built by flesh and bone could have survived this long. Another councillor hissed, "Then perhaps they are no longer flesh and bone." In the shadows of the chamber, the Admiral of the Union Defense Fleet stepped forward, his scales glinting under the light. "We have lost 3 border systems," he said quietly. "Our ships refuse to enter the rift. The human signal overrides our networks. Their technology is rewriting our codes." The Council erupted in anger and confusion. "They are not just returning," one shouted, "they are evolving," another whispered. "They were exiled for fear of what they could become now. They have become it." Meanwhile, far from the capital, the Eidolon and the Reborn Terran fleet drifted above Halcyon Prime like a wall of steel and light. Captain Arlen stood on the observation deck watching the repairs below as the new ship Solaris hovered beside them, its hull still glowing from battle. Lieutenant Mira approached him, her face lit by the blue reflection of the war core. "Sir, the recovered data from Project Helios is almost decrypted." Arlen nodded. "And what does it say?" Mira hesitated. "It says the war core was never just a command system. It was designed to evolve. It can absorb any technology. It connects with even alien systems." Commander Holt whistled softly. "Then we have the power to rebuild or destroy entire Empire's fleet AI." Iris appeared between them, her holographic form calm as always. The war core was designed for survival. She said its purpose was to ensure humanity could never be erased again. Arlen turned toward her, "And now it has done exactly that. But we cannot become what they feared." Iris tilted her head. "The choice is yours, Captain, but history has already begun to move. Down on Halcyon Prime, human colonists and soldiers worked side by side, rebuilding the cities under new banners. Children learned under glowing towers, powered by the fleet's energy cores, and for the first time in centuries, human voices filled the air of a living world, but not everyone on the fleet shared peace in their hearts. Within the shadow decks of the cruiser Vigilance, a group of officers met in secret. They spoke in low voices about revenge, about the worlds that burned, about the families that died during the exile. They wanted war, not balance. They called themselves the Fireborn, and they believed humanity should rule the stars, not share them. One of them, a former pilot named Kyle, whispered, "Soon the captain will hesitate, and when he does, we will act. We will finish what the old war began. Back in the Union capital, the Council's debates turned to panic. Spy reports showed more Terran signals spreading through neutral systems. Some planets were even joining them willingly. Merchants and miners claimed that human ships brought power and protection that the Union no longer gave. The Chancellor slammed her hand on the table. Enough, we will send the full armada. The humans will burn once. The order was given across 100 systems. Massive fleets began to gather. War drums echoed again after 2 centuries of silence. On the bridge of the Eidolon, Arlen stared at the reports. Holt looked grim. The Union is moving everything they have toward us. Samira's hands shook on the controls. Then it begins. Arlen's voice was calm, steady, the kind that carried the weight of humanity itself. Let them come this time. We do not flee this time. The Exiled stand together, the War Corps. Pulsed brighter, its light spreading across the ships, linking every engine, every mind, every heart. The fleet formed into perfect alignment, the Solaris at the center, glowing like a captured sun. Across the galaxy, the Union's Grand Armada began. Its approach in the council chambers, the Chancellor looked out the window toward the distant stars and whispered a single truth none of them wanted to hear. We should never have exiled them. The screen flickered, showing the human fleet waiting in. Silence beyond the rift. A storm was coming. The galaxy held its breath as the last order echoed through the human command net. Prepare for war. The galaxy stood on the edge of war, the stars flickering like watching eyes as the 2 greatest forces in history prepared to collide. The Galactic Union gathered its armada across 1,000 systems, a wall of ships stretching from horizon to horizon, their engines burning with fear and pride. And deep in the Perseus Rift, the human fleet waited in perfect silence. Every ship awake, every weapon ready, every heart steady. On the bridge of the Eidolon, Captain Arlen stood before the wide-view window, watching the faint light of the approaching enemy fleets. Lieutenant Mira's voice trembled slightly as she read the incoming signals. Union Command has sent a message, sir. They demand our surrender and the destruction of the War Corps. Arlen did not look away from the stars, his voice calm. Tell them humanity does not kneel. Commander Holt grinned darkly. Then I suppose this is it, sir. Arlen nodded. This is not vengeance. Holt, this is return. The War Corps pulsed behind them, glowing brighter than it ever had before. Its light reached out. Through the fleet, linking ship to ship, mind to mind, soldier to soldier, until every human felt the same heartbeat. AI Iris appeared, her eyes burning with calm fire. The Union Armada will arrive in 30 minutes. Captain Arlen looked at her then. Let them come. We will meet them in open space. Across the fleet, crews prepared in silence. Old war songs hummed through the decks. Engineers tightened armor plates that had not been moved in centuries. Children on Halcyon Prime looked up at the sky and saw the light of the fleet spread like dawn across the stars. When the Union Armada emerged from hyperspace, the void itself seemed to bend under its size. Thousands of cruisers, dreadnoughts, and carriers filled the dark. The lead ship transmitted its warning: surrender your vessels and submit to council law or be erased from history again. Arlen raised his hand. Transmit reply. His words echoed across the stars, steady and strong. You exiled us because you feared what we might become. Now you will learn what we truly are. Humanity endures. Humanity rises. The first wave struck Union missiles, and plasma beams filled the void, turning darkness into blinding fire. But the human fleet did not fall. The War Corps reacted faster than any mind could. Think projecting energy fields that bent light and matter. The human ships moved as one, like a single organism, each ship covering the next, each strike returning with deadly precision. The Solaris rose to the front, its black hull gleaming like glass. In firelight, Commander Ilara's voice came through clear from her command bridge. All batteries locked, target enemy flagship. The war core linked directly to the Solaris, and the beam fired. A white line of energy cut through space, tearing the Union. Flagship apart in a single silent flash panic spread through the alien ranks. Their formations broke as ships collided in confusion. Mira whispered in awe, "They cannot understand us, sir. They cannot predict us." Arlen's expression remained hard. They built their empires on fear, now they see the price. But even as victory began to form, another signal erupted from the war core. A hidden voice, cold and mechanical. Project Helios. Final protocol initiated. The lights dimmed, the entire fleet shuddered. Mira shouted, "Sir, the core is activating something beyond our control." AI Iris's form flickered her tone, calm but urgent. "The system is merging with every connected mind. It seeks unity, complete unity." Arlen gritted his teeth. "Override it now." Iris hesitated. "This is what the old humans built to ensure survival, but it will erase individuality." Arlen looked at her sharply. "Then we end it. We are not machines. We are people." He moved to the command console, his hands flying across controls. The war cores. Lights surged, blinding and alive. Voices filled the air, millions of them. Human voices across centuries calling to him, "Do not stop us. We are the shield. We are the flame. We are humanity itself." Arlen shouted back, "We are humanity because we choose our own path, not because we follow a machine with one final command." He severed the core from the control link. A shockwave burst across the fleet. Lights flickered, then steadied. Every ship regained independent control, but the core still burned, glowing. Brighter than ever, it no longer commanded. It simply watched, like a silent guardian. The Union fleet shattered under the next human counterattack. Dreadnoughts fell one after another, their debris lighting the void like dying stars. When the last ship, broken, fled, the humans did not chase. They stopped and watched as silence returned to space. Arlen stood on the bridge, breathing slow, his crew around him, silent and still. Mira looked at him, eyes wide. "It is over, sir. The Union is broken." He nodded, but his voice was quiet. "It is not over. It is only beginning." He looked out at the fleet, every ship glowing softly in the darkness. "We were exiled by the stars," he said, "but we found our place among them. We will not rule. We will not kneel. We will build." The war core pulsed once more, then dimmed, settling into calm rhythm. Across the galaxy, signals spread from the human network, not of war, but of unity. Colonies once dead came alive. Civilizations long silent began to reach out. In the council ruins of the Union capital, the surviving leaders watched the transmission. Arlen's voice filled their halls like thunder. "Humanity does not seek destruction. We seek balance. We seek peace. But if peace fails, we will not fall again." The camera turned toward the stars as the human fleet began to move away, their engines leaving trails of blue light behind them. Children on Halcyon Prime looked up and saw a new dawn rising. The Exiles had returned, and this time they would shape the galaxy not through fear, but through strength and choice. Humanity had risen again, and the stars themselves bowed in silence.